Morning, everybody. So thanks for joining me this morning. I appreciate it. So we'll open it up and we'll start taking questions through Jenny, who's going to act as our moderator today. So get your questions into Jenny. Before we get the first question, though, we had one that somebody submitted it in advance through email. So I thought I would go ahead and cover that one first, and then we can open it up to the questions that y'all have and see what y'all want to talk about today. So first question that came in is a question about open educational resources. And it talks about how there's evidence showing that OER helps with reducing course withdrawal rates, increases retention, and its overall benefit to our students because of the cost of instruction, with which I agree. So the question was, what can we do to support faculty in the adoption of OER, and would we consider funding that in some way? So a couple of points in my answer to that. First, I fully agree. OER is a great thing and we should do more of that. The State Board of Education has had some initiatives on that and moving towards more OER fund, courses. And so I agree with that. In addition, our bookstore has a section of their textbook adoption specifically regarding OER. And they actually, our bookstore through our Barnes & Noble College now has a partnership with a company that helps them find OER resources and adopt those. And so I think I want to encourage all of our faculty to take advantage of that and the new partnership we have with the bookstore, because I think that will help. But then in final answer to the question, I do think as an institution, we should put more emphasis on how are we going to support that effort to have more OER. I don't know right now if we could commit to any particular funding to have that happen, but I think we ought to talk about what the effort is. And lastly, I know a lot of our faculty have been very active in this, and I want to reach out and say thank you to all of those who worked on that state board group that worked on that. So I know we're moving in that direction, and I think it is the direction of the future. And so definitely I want to support that and find a way we can incentivize that and move that forward. So that's the question. That's the answer for the first question that was posed by email. So I'm prepared to go ahead and open it up to see what you all want to talk about. I'm very excited that we are almost through with our 6th full week of instruction, and we're doing a good job. We need to keep following our public health guidance that we have out there. We need to ensure everyone is continuing with mask wearing, social distancing, hand washing, and doing the right thing. If we keep that up and we continue, we're in pretty good shape. So with that in mind, I'm ready to open it up for what questions you have.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kevin. We have a first question from Grounds. So the question's a bit long, but I'll read it here. So as an employee for Grounds, I have been witness to what ends up in dumpsters around campus, and I have been troubled by the things that end up there. If you are not aware, on a regular basis, items like desks, cabinets, bookshelves, chairs, couches, electronics, lab equipment, etc., that are in perfectly good condition are filling our dumpsters and consequently our landfill. This is concerning to me because there are organizations and people in our community that could really benefit from these items, and I think it is environmentally irresponsible to be so wasteful. So my question to you is, why are these items not being donated to places like Habitat for Humanity or the Idaho Youth Ranch as a benefit to our community? And do you think that as a university, we should be upholding ourselves to a higher standard in regards to the amount of waste we produce?
Well, good question. Well, I think the answer to that is fairly direct, which is I don't know why those things would end up in the dumpster, because that doesn't make sense. They shouldn't. We should be making sure that we have first, that we are ensuring that those items are not of use to the university, not to a particular department. A particular department or office may say, well, we don't need these, let's get rid of them. But first, can we reuse those within the university? Because there may be other departments or offices on campus that could use those materials, and that ought to be the first thing that we have. Secondly, then, if we do have something like that, but it's in perfectly good shape, we do, I think, have a responsibility to reuse and get that to someplace where it can be reused rather than go to the landfill. So anyway, in answer to the question, I do support that. So the next question is, how do we actualize that? So I'll bring that up with the VPs and the deans about how we need to be more careful about that and maybe start a program where that happens, which those things take resources and time and effort to do, but I think they are worthwhile. So I appreciate the question.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin. Next question. When new students are registering at ISU, on the online form, the College of Technology programs are separated from the rest of the university as available programs to choose from. When asking about it, I've been told that it is a funding reason. I'm not sure how funding affects the drop-down menu on a list of programs available at ISU. Having the COT separate from the rest of the university continues the stigma that COT is not part of the rest of the university from the very beginning when students apply to ISU. Why does funding affect a list of available programs at ISU and leave College of Tech as a separate category?
Yeah. Good question, because I think the answer to your question is it doesn't. That's really not a very good answer. The state funds our CTE programs through a different appropriation than the traditional baccalaureate type programs, but the fact that the funding comes in a separate appropriations bill does not mean somehow it has to be separate. My honest opinion on that is that that was something that was a myth perpetuated a long time ago. I do not believe in that separation. Every single student, faculty, and staff member in the College of Technology is just important to me and is just as much a Bengal and just as much a part of this university as every other student, faculty, and staff member. If I never heard the distinction again of people saying, oh, upper campus and lower campus, that would make me happy, because there should not be a distinction. There isn't. They are our students, they are our faculty and staff, and we need to break down those barriers. And if this is one that someone has identified, then I think we will need to get it addressed.
Okay. Next question, Kevin. Idaho's governor has stated that he will restore K-12 education funding using the state's expected $400 million surplus from this year. What do you think is the chance that you could convince the state to use some of that excess for ISU, or at least give back the holdback?
Well, I won't speculate as to what the chances are. What I can tell you is that we are talking about that now at the state level. We're having discussions with the State Board of Education about making requests into the state's money that they have to help us with their resources that the state received in terms of the federal stimulus money to deal with COVID and some other areas. So we are making some of those requests right now. I won't speculate as to how successful they will be, but I don't want anyone to think that we're sitting idle knowing that the state has resources and that we aren't making requests for it, and we aren't making the case with our legislators and our elected officials, because we are. So hopefully we will make inroads in that, and it will lead to positive results, but I wouldn't speculate on our chances.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin. Next question. Why isn't ISU reporting COVID numbers to its staff? I found out the information from the ISJ that there have been 27 cases this month.
Well, I think we are. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. We have a website where we're reporting our number of cases. So I think that we are.
I just included the link to that. So it's on the Roaring Back site /COVID cases, and then it's updated every Wednesday, I believe, by our ISU public health team.
Okay, appreciate that, Jenny. Yeah, there's no intent or effort to not be transparent about this information. I have no problem with the fact that we report it. We should report it, and we will, and we have been. So.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Next question comes from our YouTube stream. Please provide an update on our budget status.
Okay, so we we won't know the full impact of our budget going forward until we get to our census date for enrollment, which is in the middle of October. And that's where we will see if our enrollments matched our budget projections in terms of how much revenue we receive from student tuition and fees, which, as everybody knows, is a large portion of our budget. Our budget reduction efforts in the spring, while difficult, while hard and painful, painful to many of us personally, and to some of the people we work with even more personally. While they were painful, they were necessary, and they have helped. They've helped considerably. The hiring freeze that we implemented is helping. The furloughs that we are all taking part in is helping. So as of now, we are tracking fairly well. However, our early reports on our enrollment numbers is that we're going to be a bit down in enrollments. And so that will probably have a budget impact. But with the savings we're having through the hiring freeze and the other efforts, we actually should be able to come in pretty close to what we have budgeted for the year, pending any other shifts in our enrollment. So sorry, long-winded answer, long-winded way of saying we are about where we thought we would be with the budget cuts we did this spring and the one-time effort. So right now we're stable.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Next question. Do we know if next semester will look like this one from a course delivery perspective?
Good question. And the answer is, as of now, yes. In fact, it will look very similar to this semester. So right now we are planning that our course delivery will essentially be similar to what we're doing now. We're not going to make any significant changes. What we've done in terms of hybrid courses and relocating courses to different classrooms, the in-person versus hybrid versus online mix should remain pretty much the same for spring as we have in the fall.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Next question. A communication went out about winter commencement. Is this going to be a normal commencement, or do we have COVID-19 protocols in place?
Oh, good question. Yeah, we need to communicate a little further on that one. There are going to be numerous health protocols in place. This will not be a commencement that looks like all of our other ones. And most notably is the discussion around not allowing attendance of the audience, that it's going to be a commencement for our students. And then within the commencement, social distancing, making sure people are apart, the mask wearing, eliminating things like handshakes and some of the things that happen. So we have several of those protocols that we are working on. We cannot, in good conscience, say that we are doing all of these other things and then let's go ahead and have thousands of people show up in Holt Arena and pack them in for an event like that. So there will be protocols in place.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. I have a couple of questions related to the county's threat level with COVID categories, and I'm going to combine the two and ask them together. So with Southeastern Idaho Public Health, Bannock County, moving into the orange category, why hasn't the university updated this information on the Roaring Back webpage?
Why haven't we updated that? The county changed its status? Is that the question? I'm not sure that we have or haven't updated that. What we're doing right now in terms of each of our locations, whether it's Idaho Falls, Pocatello, Twin Falls, Meridian, or for that matter in Anchorage, Alaska, is we are monitoring what is the change in our communities. And I think we are acknowledging what those are. For example, Ada County has been at a very different level than Bannock County and Bonneville County. And so we are, so we are taking that into account, that what's happening in our community around us does impact what we're doing and how we're factoring that into our Roaring Back plan. And on the Roaring Back website, what is happening in the community, and the spread in the community and those rates are one of the factors that we take into account when we make our decision. Where we are in our decision and what we're doing on our campus doesn't exactly mirror what's going on in the counties. Those can be different. And they have been different. For example, in Meridian in particular, they've been different, I think, for quite a while. So we are taking that into account. We are closely working with our public health district. We are in contact with them constantly. So that is a factor that we are considering.
Thanks, Kevin. Let's switch gears just a little bit, and somebody has asked about enrollment numbers.
Okay. I'll have to have somebody grab the data. I don't have that off the top of my head. If someone else has the data and wants to chime in, that would be great. But keep in mind, these were numbers based on 10th day post-enrollment, which are not official. They are not our census day numbers as set forth by the State Board of Education or the census day numbers we normally rely on, but they're preliminary numbers. So does anybody have them? If not, I'll give a general description.
I just need 1 minute.
Okay, so if we just wait a minute, we will get those actuals. But again, these are preliminary based on 10th day, not our actual census numbers for the fall.
While Danny is pulling that, Kevin, I will share a comment that we received from a parent on YouTube.
Sure.
The parent says, as a parent, I want to thank you for for everything you are doing to keep our students safe during this pandemic.
Oh, well, that's kind. Thank you for sharing that.
I can share the screen. So this information is from, no, that might not be, August 31st, which was 10th day. So this should be the right one. Host will need to let me share my screen, please. Okay, I'll try one more time. There we go. Okay. That look like the right one, Kevin?
Yeah, I think that is.
All right.
So that's what our current preliminary on what our enrollment will probably end up looking like. Now, one of the things that isn't included in this, and part of the reason it isn't our census count, is that these numbers don't include all the students who are taking dual enrollment and concurrent enrollment classes. And that's because the high schools don't start them at the same time we do. So all of those numbers come in later. So that's one of the major factors that leads to a change in this when we get to census day. But thank you for sharing that.
Okay, a follow-up question about enrollment. If we have Danny and Kevin breakdown of enrollment numbers at the outreach centers.
We don't have that right. Well, we do, but I don't have access to that right now. So we get that when we get into our census day reporting, is when we get into that level of detail. I haven't seen a report yet for the fall broken down by Idaho Falls, Meridian, Twin Falls, Anchorage, and Pocatello.
Kevin, what's happening with furloughs next semester? Are we going to have to take more or less furlough days than initially planned?
Okay, good question. And thank you for asking it. The furloughs are difficult for everyone. And let me start by saying I appreciate the fact that everyone is participating. I know it's not easy, but we're in this together. So as of now, the plan is that the furloughs set for the spring will go as planned. There is not a plan to increase them over the current level, but there's also not a plan to decrease them. But having said that, we can't really make any promises at this point because we don't know if there will be further changes to our budget from the state. I don't think there will. The governor has told me that there won't be any further budget reductions or cuts in this fiscal year, but things could change. So as long as there aren't any further reductions in state budget, as long as our enrollments hold up, the plan as of now is that the spring furloughs will be as we have them planned, not increased or decreased.
Thanks, Kevin. Next question. ISU has been at stage yellow for a few weeks. How is that decision made every week?
Okay, so every week our health team, which is our group of public health experts, goes through every one of those, I think it's 18 criteria, and they assign the data to those 18 areas. And then each one of those areas is rated on the scale from the green to the red. And then the numbers are put in there as well. And then that data is shared every week with the admin council. So it's myself and all of the VPs and a few of my other direct reports. And then we go through that and we look through all of that data and we weigh them. And then every week, and all of this data is on the Roaring Back website. And so we go through and we say, all right, based on the data and the condition of all of those different factors, each week, where should we be? What makes sense for our operational levels based on that data? And so it is reviewed every week. So those metrics look at the campus environment, what we have going on our campus, but they also look at the community environment, what's going on around us. And we look at it for each one of our areas. So Idaho Falls, Twin Falls, Meridian, Pocatello, and in Anchorage. So we look at what's going on campus, and we look at what's going on in the community, and take all of that into account when we assign what is our operational level.
And Kevin, a follow-up question for related to that. Can you clarify about color stages matching the health district colors, whether those are the same as ours or different?
They're not the same. You know, we are part of our communities that we operate in, but we're also assessing what our campus is doing in response, and the things that we do in our color levels and our operational levels are not one and the same, because we have different things we're trying to accomplish. You know, we're talking about whether we're having in-person instruction, which is something that is different than what the counties and what the health districts do. So they are not exactly the same, although they're similar metrics, they're not the same.
Thanks, Kevin. Next question. I want to raise some concern about my online only students that have tested positive. I don't think they count toward our campus totals, but I worry that they aren't a consideration in our holistic approach to supporting our students during the pandemic.
Okay. I think I understand the concern about whether or not we're supporting those students who are not in person. I appreciate that. You know, all of our students and all of our faculty and staff that are affected by COVID are important to us. So making sure we have the right support systems in place are important to me. So thank you for bringing that up. I don't know if I have a more specific answer to that question right now.
Okay, next question, Kevin. What is the status of the previously announced state hiring freeze? Where are we at this point, and how much autonomy is granted to institutional leadership in working around hiring challenges? What kind of positional hiring is likely versus unlikely?
Okay, we are still in a hiring freeze at the university. The state has changed the way they are processing the hiring freeze. The state still expects us to be in a hiring freeze, but it's probably more fairly described right now as a hiring slowdown as opposed to a complete freeze. What the state has said is they have delegated to us responsibility to address that at the university level. So we are addressing that here. Each week, the administrative council goes through all of the current open positions where there's a request to fill, And each one is analyzed, each one is discussed, and we are prioritizing. We know we have to have the hiring freeze in place from a budget perspective, and so we are trying to prioritize those positions, the positions where we have the high need, where we have need to get those filled. We're trying to release those, and we're doing that every week. So weekly, we are reviewing those positions and allowing some positions to move forward with hiring, and others we are keeping on hold. And it's and that's a judgment call that we have to make each week based on prioritization.
Thanks, Kevin. Next question. I have seen more people on campus not wearing masks. Has the university been doing anything about this?
Yes, thank you for that question. I sent out an email earlier this week specifically trying to address that. And we formed a group of mask ambassadors. I think many of you might have seen the call for volunteers that went out for that. We have many people, students and faculty and staff who have volunteered, but we need more. So let me put out that call right now. Anyone who's interested in volunteering to be a mask ambassador, we would love your help with this. This group, we have been training this group. They go around in pairs. So it's not anyone on their own. They go around in pairs. We arm each one of them with a kit that includes masks, gloves, some Bengal stickers, and some other stuff they can use as giveaways. And we're sending them around campus to some of the areas where we have seen low mask compliance. And their job is to be an ambassador to talk about why we have the mask, why it's important to get more mask compliance. And so we have those teams that are working on that. So being a public health ambassador, I think that's the proper name, public health ambassador, not mask ambassador. So being a public health ambassador is important to us, and we're trying to work on that. We're trying to continue our messaging. Now is not the time for us to get lax or casual in our enforcement. Again, as I said at the top of this discussion today, we've made it through 6 weeks of instruction. We've proven that we can do this. We've proven that we can manage this situation. But the way we have done it is by everyone pulling together to comply with the social distancing, with the masks, with the hand washing, and staying home if you're sick. And if you have symptoms, do not come to work or come to class. Those are the keys to how we are going to continue to combat this. Yes, we have had cases on campus, but the people that we have doing contact tracing are fantastic. They're doing an outstanding job. We're identifying where these cases are coming from. We are doing isolation and quarantine to contain when we find those on campus. We are contacting anyone who's come in contact with those affected individuals. Our team that's doing this is doing a great job. And to honor all of that work and to honor all the work that we've done for 6 months to be ready to be open this fall, we have to continue to be vigilant. Because if we don't continue to be vigilant, that's a threat to our continued operations. But we've proven we can do this. We've proven that by following these guidelines, we can be open and have the education being delivered as it is now. So I'm calling on everyone to continue that. And anyone who wants to be a public health ambassador, please volunteer and come forward.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Next question. Studies show that gaiters, bandanas, and face shields are ineffective at shielding COVID. Campus posters suggest that a gaiter or a bandana are acceptable face masks. Will ISU be updating their policy and campus posters to reflect these scientific results?
Well, our health committee has reviewed the literature. Now, our health committee is made up of public health experts. We are a health science heavy campus. We have a specialty in that, and we have experts. And those experts have reviewed the literature on face coverings. They've looked at the effectiveness, and they've developed our campus guidance based on that literature. So our campus guidance was based on the health literature that is out there. Notably, face shields are only to be worn in the instructional setting. However, cloth face coverings should be used if not conducting instruction. And we have built that guidance based on the scientific evidence.
Okay, great, thanks, Kevin. Next question. When I graduated from Utah State University 30 years ago, enrollment there was only a few thousand more than ISU. Now, Utah State is reporting more than 27,000 enrolled. What are the dynamics that have allowed USU to double in size while ISU has remained basically the same?
Well, it's a very good question. It's a very in-depth question. There are so many factors that have led to that, that I can't really do justice to that question in sort of the coffee with Kevin time. You know, whoever wants to ask that question, if we want to have a larger discussion, I think that warrants that. One of the things, but I'll just point to one, not trying to say this is the answer. One of the things that the state of Utah has done is to allow students from Idaho, from this region of Idaho, to go to Utah State University with in-state tuition rates and not pay out-of-state tuition. That has drawn a lot of students that otherwise might have come to Idaho State University from our region, but they can go to Utah State at a cheaper price. That drew a lot of students out of Southeast Idaho down to Utah State University. Now, we don't have that luxury because our state law and the legislature has not given us the ability to do that, to either reciprocate in bringing students from Utah here, or to give us an incentive that we can draw those students and keep them here at Idaho State. That is one of the major factors. There are plenty of others. Just know that continuing to increase our enrollments, to increase our retention rates, so that we can serve our mission to deliver education to students of Idaho and of Southeast Idaho in particular, is something that we are focused on.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Next question. Is the academic schedule going to change next semester?
Well, it will probably be altered. We haven't made that final decision yet, but we've committed to making that decision this week because we have to let the registrar's office know. It has financial aid implications because of our application to be involved in Title IV federal funding. We have to give our dates of instruction and the dates of our academic semesters. So we are making that decision this week. And then we will communicate that out to the entire campus. But there is likely to be some alteration to the schedule. But when we make that decision, it will be communicated.
Follow-up question, will there be the usual spring break during spring break?
That is one of the primary factors that we're considering when we make a change to the spring semester. A lot of it is around spring break. The guidance that is coming out nationally and is that when you have a population and the population all goes somewhere else and comes back, it increases the spread. So that's one of the major considerations. What do we do with spring break? That was the primary consideration when we altered the fall semester with regard to the Thanksgiving week, was rather than have everyone leave and then come back and increase the spread, we made that change. So most likely there's going to be some change with regard to spring break. So prepping everyone for the decision that's coming out, although we haven't made it yet, we're still in discussions. We have been taking input from students. We've taken input from the student government and the students. We've taken input from the faculty and from the faculty senate and from staff. I've talked to all the deans about this. I've talked to many people because there's so many considerations about changing the schedule. We're trying to take broad input, and the answer is no matter what we do, there will be implications. And so we're going to end up making a decision and sticking with it, even though we know it will not be a perfect decision for everyone. It's not a decision where everyone is going to be satisfied or happy with it. But please know that we have been taking public health guidance and discussions with the experts and discussions with everybody who's going to be impacted. And we know this decision will impact everyone. So please know that we're mindful of that when we make this decision this week.
Thanks, Kevin. Next question comes from YouTube, also in the category of logistics and scheduling for campus. What will campus operations look like after finals? Faculty and students will be gone. Will staff be working on campus or working remotely?
Well, again, what we have said from the beginning, and this has not changed, is that while campus is open and while offices are open, each office still has the ability to and should be working on social distancing. Each office should have social distancing guidance in place and be practicing, that masks are required, that people who are sick should stay home or are symptomatic in any way, that we have hand washing and sanitizing in place. And then within that, if an office needs to function or individuals in that office need to function by working remotely, every supervisor is encouraged to do that to the extent that it is possible. But with that in mind, the campus will continue to be operational after the close of the semester, the academic semester. So yes, campus will remain open, but again, those offices that are open should be following all of our guidance and all of our requirements to remain open safely.
Thanks, Kevin. Getting back to the public health ambassadors for a second. My understanding is that public health ambassadors are being asked to talk to people outside about wearing masks. Why are we doing this if people walking alone outside? Why are we doing this if people are walking outside alone when it is not the official policy?
Okay, so face coverings are required to be worn on campus when you're in the presence of other people. That's what we have required. In the outdoor setting, face coverings are to be worn when there are other people around. If someone is completely alone, that's different. But the requirement is face coverings are to be worn on campus when in the presence of others, whether indoor or outdoor. So we've just started the public health ambassador program. We're still refining the training in those protocols, but that's the requirement that they will be working from.
Okay. Kevin, we've been asked to clarify who is on the ISU public health team. So the names of our employees on that team or what that committee looks like. Okay.
So our public health committee is Chris Owens, Cassidy McKay, Ron Solbrook, Ryan Lindsay, Jen Parrott, Rex Force, and Chris Boyce. I think that's everybody that's on that committee. Did I miss anybody? Anybody else that's online? Did I miss any of our health committee members? Okay, doesn't sound like I did.
I think so. Okay, thanks, Kevin. Next question. What are some of the retention initiatives that ISU is working out?
Okay, well, there are a lot of them, so I'll go with a few off the top of my head, but some of our retention initiatives include how we're looking at our math pathways and how we are working on developing meta majors, how we're looking at what we're doing in academic advising and restructuring how academic advising works and functions is a big part of what we're doing on retention. We are working on a new software system, implementing a new software system that's an early alert system to identify those students that are having trouble or that are showing some of the warning signs of academic concern and identifying those early so that we can do a very proactive approach of dealing with that. And that goes back to a lot of what we're doing in advising is to move to that proactive model and then using the software to identify some of the students that might otherwise we not have realized needed some intervention. So, I mean, those are just a few of the items. There are more that we're doing on that, but that's the few off the top of my head.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin. Next question, are there plans to collect updated information about the campus climate? COVID and budget shortfalls have intensified many of the underlying problems, such as poor communication and retaliation, that have not been corrected in the last 2 years.
Well, I'm sorry that that someone's experiencing that they feel that there are those things that continue to go on. I think we have been communicating pretty consistently for the last 2 years that we want to build a campus culture based on some basic principles, those basic principles of trust, compassion, stability, and hope. And we are continuing to work towards that as a goal. I'm not going to be the one who says it's done and it's everywhere on campus. So I know we still have work to do, but I want you to know that I'm committed to continuing to work on those. We have a group we have formed called the Employee Engagement Task Force. And this group is working right now on a new campus climate survey. We did one earlier and we're doing another one. We hope to send that out in October, so next month. It will be anonymous again. We will then try to take that data and use it to make whatever improvements we can to improve the campus environment for all of our faculty and staff. Please know I am still committed to this. I remain committed to the culture that we want to move forward on campus based on those core principles. And so yes, we are going to do another campus climate survey next month.
Thanks, Kevin. Related to retention, a follow-up question. How are those strategies applied to graduate education and our students?
Well, I don't know that they're applied differently in one sense. All those efforts are meant to improve retention and improve the student experience. Yes, of course, they apply differently because graduate students have a different learning environment than our undergraduate students. But the concept is that we want to make sure that we are advancing the learning environment and our retention for all of our students. I think some of our graduate students have different issues sometimes with what are some of the retention than undergraduate, but we are working on those as well. I know that Adam Bradford and I have had several conversations about the culture and issues that we have with some of our graduate student areas. So we are working on those. I think that's my answer there.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Next question. Mental health is a real issue right now. How can we support our students during this time?
Yeah. Mental health is a major issue, period. Not even right now. It's a major issue, and it affects many of us in very personal ways. It is more pronounced now because of the pressures our entire society is under from COVID and from lots of other things that are going on in our society right now. Mental health is a real issue, and it's a very personal one. First, my advice, first, reach out. Reach out and try to connect with those students that you think might be struggling. Reach out to them. And then absolutely reach out and connect with the students, and then try to connect those students with our counseling center. Connect them with our Division of Student Affairs. We have a fantastic counseling center, and the professionals that work there are doing a great job. And I really appreciate them on a daily basis, what they're doing. So try to connect those students that you're concerned about with our counseling center. I know they welcome that connection over there. And to all of you and whoever asked this question, first, thank you in advance for caring about that and for reaching out. And let's continue to work together, because we get through things like this when it comes to our mental health by pulling together as a community and being a community that supports each other through times like this. So continue that support, reach out, and refer those students.
Thanks, Kevin. Next question, are you working with the state to perhaps allow more non-resident tuition waivers? This has been an issue for many years, so I've been surprised that there hasn't been more public discussion about this matter in previous years. Thank you.
Yes, we are. And that's a very difficult question. There's a lot of issues surrounding it, but yes, we are working with the state. We're having discussions with both state lawmakers and with the State Board of Education. And it's a difficult one for the state to address because it does not impact all of the higher education institutions in the same way. And so there's a lot of nuanced need around that among the institutions. But yes, we are having those conversations to try to get some solutions there.
Regarding campus climate question, there's a follow-up about asking who is on that employee engagement task force.
Okay, sure. Danny, do you have an answer for that one?
I do. So the folks that are on that group are Katie Thomas from HR, Darren Blackburn from Academic Affairs, Stacy Gibson from the Office of Equity and Inclusion, Patricia Overy from Staff Council, Jeannie Lee Stock, who's a student employee, Stuart Summers, Marketing and Communication, and we're currently still looking for a faculty representative. So if there are any faculty listening now that are interested, contact Katie Thomas in Human Resources, and we'd like to get some faculty on that group. But the Faculty Senate have been filling a lot of appointments on different committees and groups right now, and just haven't had a faculty member jump on board yet. So thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. We're in the middle of a pandemic and the Student Health Center seems to have fewer employees and resources than any other time I've been on campus. What steps are happening to make sure they are getting the funding and resources that they need to keep up with regular health issues along with COVID-19?
Well, I'm not sure that I was aware that there was, I mean, other than obviously there is a need for resources in that area. I wasn't aware of a particular need. I know that they've had some staffing changes, but I'll talk to Rex about that. That area reports up through Rex Force, our VP of Health Sciences. So I'll talk to him about what those needs are. So thanks for bringing that up.
Next question. What resources are being provided, if any, for students of color who statistically are disproportionately disadvantaged during these times?
Well, I would encourage anyone who, who has needs to be supported. Our student affairs professionals do a great job. Our Office of Equity and Inclusion has resources specific. So we do try to have resources and support available. So I would encourage anyone to reach out to Student Affairs and in particular to our Office of Equity and Inclusion, where we have some of those support resources.
Follow-up question about Student Health Center. To follow up on this, why are there rumors around campus that ISU is withholding federal funding from the CARES Act from student health?
Well, they're not. So as to why there's rumors, I don't know. But I can tell you the answer is we are not withholding that. So I don't know why there's a rumor.
Okay, Kevin, I think that we're reaching the end of our questions, unless anybody has one final one. Actually, one just came in while I was saying that sentence.
Okay.
Okay, hang on one second. Okay, I want ISU to stay open, and I'm happy to say I don't have to remind people to follow the guidelines very often. I know you have encouraged us all to be engaged in keeping the campus safe. I am concerned, however, that there are employees who believe it is someone else's job to remind others to follow the guidelines. In the rare instance I see someone not wearing a face covering or social distancing, more often than not, I see other staff, including administrators, already there. I'm always polite and find that folks will respond, but it makes me feel like I have to be the bad guy because others won't do it. What is your expectation for which faculty, staff, and administrators should be engaged in politely reminding people to follow the guidelines?
Well, thank you for the question, and thank you for taking responsibility and stepping up. You know, a couple of things. First, we're in this together. We're all in this as a community. As a community, we all have mutual accountability and mutual responsibility to move this forward. None of us have the luxury of saying it's someone else's job. None of us have the luxury of saying, well, that's not my job description. Because we all are in this together. And showing up when we have a need, and right now we have a need. We're in a pandemic. We have a real crisis. And all of us coming together is everyone's responsibility. It is mutual responsibility and shared. So my expectation is that everyone realizes that and everyone steps up to that responsibility. So I think if we all pull together and we all work on this together, we will be able to get through this. Going back to, I think, what we have tried to say for the last 6 months, pulling together and working on this together as a community and caring for each other as a community, showing that love and respect for each other as part of this community and not doing this selfishly. That's how we get through this. That's what brings a community through a time of crisis.
Next question comes via YouTube live stream. Drinking fountains have been removed from campus, leaving only bottle feed faucets. Has this really been identified as a source of spreading COVID? I see some gross bottles.
Well, in terms of that, we are following the public health guidance on that. One of the things that I know for a fact is that I am not smarter than the United States Centers for Disease Control. And so we are following the public health guidance with regard to drinking fountains and the right way to do that. And so I think we will continue to do that. I hope everyone also takes responsibility for their own cleanliness and sanitation and the drinking bottles they have. Again, that's part of our mutual responsibility in our community.
And thinking of drinking things, Eric wants to know where your coffee or cocoa is.
Today, I just have water. So I do not have either coffee or my usual hot chocolate today. It's a little bit, for me, it's still a little bit too warm for hot chocolate. But thanks for the question, Eric.
Okay, next question. Why have outside garbage containers been removed from campus?
I don't know. Sorry, I wish I had a better answer. I don't know. I'll ask and see what has happened there, but I don't know.
And I'll plan to follow up with this person offline once we have that answer. Okay. I haven't seen any other questions come in, Kevin, so I think I'm going to turn it back over to you for any closing statements.
Okay. Okay. First of all, thank you all. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you all for watching. We have been through a lot in the last 6 months as a community, as a campus. Most importantly, everyone on the campus has worked really hard to get us where we are. People have talked to me about how people have been taxed. They have been stressed, that this has been a lot of pressure, and I know it has. So I want to recognize and thank everyone for what it has taken to get us to this point. To be 6 weeks into the semester and be operational has been a monumental lift. And I want to make sure everyone knows that I understand that and that I appreciate it so much. And thank you all for what you continue to do. And remember, we continue to come together as a community. We continue to care for each other and work with each other to meet our public health guidance and to continue what we're doing. And if we do that, we're in good shape and we can weather this. So thank you all for everything that you do. Thank you for showing up today. And I appreciate everything. And everybody have a great day.